Greetings, everyone. It is I, the Nomad, coming to you live from the wastelands of the internet. And I decided to start because, well, I'm here. Might be a bit early for people. Might be a little bit early. But I've got, well, quite frankly, I've got so much freaking news it's coming out of my ears. Right? I could do a very, very, very long show today. This one's going to be long enough as it is. All right, depending upon how I go through these stories. Um, just as a program note, which I'll repeat several times during today's cast. Uh, well, um, it is beginning to start playing NCAA football once again. The NCAA football season has returned, and so I don't know exactly whether or not I'll be doing this show. At least if I decide to do it next week and continue, it will be much earlier. Right, it will at least be an hour earlier starting for me. And so if you're going to look for it, it'll be, we're not going to go late because, well, quite frankly, I enjoy watching college football and I'm going to enjoy it. But on that note, there's lots of news. Let's get to it. Putin demands Ukraine surrender Donbass, give up NATO ambitions, and keep Western troops out of the country, says a report. Russian President Vladimir Putin has demanded three conditions to achieving peace in the Ukraine. He wants it to give up all of eastern Donbass region, give up its NATO ambitions, and remain neutral and keep Western forces out of the war-torn country, according to a report. The Russian strongman outlined what it said, or what it would take to end the more than 3-year war during his high-stakes summit meeting in Alaska with President Trump last week. Three sources familiar with top-level Kremlin thinking told Reuters. Russian sources insisted that to Reuters that Putin has to cut down his territorial demands from his June 2024 that includes 4 provinces that Moscow believes is part of their country: Donetsk and Luhansk, which encompasses the Donbass in eastern Ukraine, and Kherson and Zaporizhzhia in the south. Okay, um, first of all, there's only one of these that is going to be acceptable to the Ukrainians. Okay, and that is not being a part of NATO. That's the reality. Zelensky is that's the only condition at this point that Zelensky is going to be willing to accept. Okay. Uh, the other two conditions. All right. First of all, Russia's going to have to totally give up on the fact that there's going to be Western forces in Ukraine. There's going to be. Whether it's the United States, we'll see. Okay. But it's going to be some form of French and German and British at least, which means it'll be British. Okay? For my British listeners, I know you don't want to hear that. As we carry on through here, talk of boots on the ground in Ukraine sparks unease in Germany. Allied talk of sending European peacekeeper forces to protect Ukraine as part of a possible peace deal with Russia has sparked backlash in Germany, a country still scarred by its militaristic Nazi past, even if the prospect remains remote. Chancellor Friedrich Merz has signaled openness to German participation in a possible peacekeeping mission in the Ukraine, while emphasizing that such a decision would require coordination with European partners and his own coalition. He also noted that any troop deployment would likely require the Bundestag mandate, a challenge for the Chancellor, whose own appointment was only voted through on a second attempt. Russia is fiercely opposed to any troops from the NATO alliance being deployed, and it's far from clear how such a force could work. Alice Wendell, the head of the surging far right Alternative for Germany, AFD, accused Mertz's conservatives of warmongering even considering the idea of ground troops, slamming it as dangerous and irresponsible. Hey Oz, welcome, welcome. And by the way, welcome, Mr. Barkley. I do see you in the chat, obviously. Uh, yeah. The words "good luck." Does that mean anything to any of you guys? Good luck. You're asking the European. We're gonna get more into this, by the way, a little bit later. But asking the Europeans for anything. All right. First of all, Russia has no. Russia's just being ridiculous. Putin is being ridiculous about that, and I'll explain it later. But when we get around to it, but he's being ridiculous. Let's go to live map of the Ukraine right now. All right. First of all, two more areas have been, according to the Russians, seized. This area here, and looks like this area down here now is now, for all intents and purposes, under their complete control. All right. It looks like they've now cut off whatever groups here. All right. It's a matter of time before they just absorb that. If and so this whole thing has now been solidified along the banks over in this side here, is what it looks like to me. This is going to be the next big area of push. As you can see, the Russians are making headway through this, and this is the industrial area of Ukraine. They're basically taking this in house to house fighting. So from the Russian standpoint, they're winning this. Okay, from in this regard. Now, what Russia was demanding before was all of this and all of this. That's obviously a no go. Okay. For one thing, if you notice, they're having a desperate time here along this river border, trying to get across it. And this swamp area is just that. It's a swamp. That's why you're not seeing fighting in here, because this is just a swamp area. Okay. They're not going to get Zaporizhzhia, okay, anytime soon. And even if they did take it, they could only take part of it because you have the Dnieper River right here, right, basically preventing it. Okay. And yes, Sherardi, you got a crown too. Just yours is number 3. All right. Over here, Dnipro and so forth. This is not, you know, part of their things. But the reality is, there's two things that are going on here. All right, and a lot of people have made a point of saying, like, for example, one of the things that has been said by Trump is that 5,000 people a week are dying. If 5,000 people a week were dying, okay, then there would be no way to sustain this battle. If 5,000 people were dying, there might be 5,000 casualties a week. Okay, that would be with both sides total, right? And that's bad enough, and it's horrible enough. But people don't get it yet. Now, Bill O'Reilly, if people remember him from his No Spin Zone on Fox News, where he was basically running high. For those who don't know, Bill O'Reilly is basically a commentator now, but he used to be a reporter for CBS News at one point. Okay, so he has a lot of contacts with the legacy media, and he still does, by the way. But he tried to claim that, in his opinion, Putin has gone off the deep end mentally. He thinks that he is absolutely crazy. He thinks that he's insane. He's got a mental illness that has driven him to this point. Okay. I think Putin is ill physically. Okay. I don't think he's insane. I think he's physically ill. And I also think that when it comes to what's going on here, these people keep talking how, well, the Russian economy is in the toilet and all this other stuff. Well, if it was in the toilet, the people in Russia would be suffering, and they're not. They're not starving. The suffering that people think that the Russians are doing is in comparison to what we have here in America or in Western Europe. So it's and no, I don't know if I get XP or what the hell it is. Right? I really don't. I haven't looked into the crowns, so it doesn't matter to me. Um, but I don't think Putin is insane. Okay, I don't think he cares. But one of the things that O'Reilly said is, oh, Putin, he's just attacking civilians, and the civilians are dying at a massive rate. Civilians are dying, but he's not targeting civilians. Okay, not saying much. The problem with when you say that he's not targeting civilians, the weapons he's using are not accurate in comparison to what we have in the West. The accuracy of Russian equipment is ludicrous. But they don't worry about that. That's not how they fought. And this is the problem I have with people like Bill O'Reilly. It's like you have no understanding of who you're dealing with. He's not insane. He's not a good guy. I'll agree with that. Right? He doesn't have a problem with the butchery that's going on. I'll say that. But he's not targeting civilians in his mind. Because he's just trying to hit. They're actually trying to aim at the Ukrainian forces. Well, yeah, but they're using weapons that they know are inaccurate. It's what they have. It's what they've always used. You want to start selling frickin' Russia smart bombs from America to make sure that they actually work? Is that your solution? So deal with the reality of the situation there, Bill. Now, Putin, you can tell from this, like I said, all you have to do is look at this. You can tell from the map, he's slowly making gains through here. Oh, it's coming at a great cost. It's coming at a great cost. Okay. I'm not saying that Russians aren't dying, because they certainly are. But I suspect that the rate of death is greatly exaggerated by Ukrainian and Western press. They are in a meat grinder. And even if they're losing 2-1 against the Ukrainian forces, that math works to their favor. It's not pretty. It's not nice. It's horrible that people are dying this way. But that's the kind of math that they're utilizing. And I'll tell you something else, Bill. Your thing about saying, "Oh, Putin, he's crazy. He's afraid for his life." I don't think Putin is afraid for his life. I think Putin is one of these people who's come to terms with his own mortality, and that's even worse. Okay, but he's not afraid for his life. He's not afraid. He doesn't want Russia to slide into a dictatorship of oligarchs where he's not in charge. I would agree that he wants to maintain power, but he's not afraid of dying. He doesn't. He is afraid of anarchy. If he's killed, that's not the same thing as being afraid of dying, Bill. And as far as he likes killing civilians, no. If he liked killing civilians, he would bring in backfire bombers and totally obliterate these major areas that are still around there. And yes, he could do that. They could do carpet bombing, all right, from heights at which the missile systems would be more or less ineffective. Now, they would be more or less ineffective for a short period of time. I would admit that. Okay, because initially they would get heavy strikes before they redid the missile defense systems to target the higher bombers. But he could bring in wave after wave of. They've got so many of them. And to be honest, well, I'm not going to give anybody advice. It's just that these people. The reality is if you're going to want peace here, both sides are going to have to come to an agreement, and I just don't see it. I just don't see it anytime soon. All right. The only question that we have is what does the U.S. do? Because one of the dirty little secrets is the only reason that the Ukrainians still exist is directly because of the United States. The Russians would have swept over the entire country already if it wasn't for the United States providing actionable intelligence on a consistent basis to the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians would not have the ability to do anything if it wasn't for U.S. intelligence. They couldn't even hold the lines. And that was demonstrated when we didn't give them intelligence for just a week. Just a week. The gains the Russians made during that time frame was just massive. All because they didn't have actionable intelligence for a single week. Anyway, on to the next. Israeli Prime Minister orders talks to free all our hostages as the army pounds Gaza City. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Thursday that he had ordered immediate negotiations aimed at freeing all the remaining hostages in Gaza as Israeli troops hammered the territory's largest city ahead of a major planned offensive. And that offensive is going on. The call for renewed talks came a day after the Defense Ministry approved a plan authorizing the call up of roughly 60,000 reservists to help capture Gaza City, home to Hamas's final stronghold. I have come to approve the IDF's military plans to take control of Gaza City and defeat Hamas, the Prime Minister said in a video statement filmed during a visit to the Gaza Division headquarters in Israel. At the same time, I have instructed to immediately begin negotiations for the release of all our hostages and an end to the war under conditions acceptable to Israel. And of course, there's the people complaining and crying about, oh, 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 don't you understand that people are dying? Oh, 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 don't you understand that they're starving to death? And I have said this before, and I'll say it repeatedly. Okay? These people, so you understand who the Palestinians are in this area, who the Gazans are. They would rather their children starve than see Hamas removed from power. They would rather protect Hamas. They will give food. They prefer to give food to the Hamas leadership than they do to their own children. They prefer to keep their children as human shields for Hamas, starving all the way, than to give up Hamas and remove Hamas from power. That's who these people are. People, I keep saying this again, Hamas is not the problem. They are a symptom of the problem. The problem is the people of Gaza because their attitude is I would rather my children starve to ensure that butchers who target children and toddlers in their cribs to bash their heads in the street continue to maintain power. That's who they are. Bye bye, Shorty. Thanks for coming. And until the world accepts that understanding of them, of who these people truly are. Oh, they're not all like that, Nomad. Don't you understand? They're not all like that. The majority are. Well, then they've gotten rid of Hamas. The majority want peace. Doesn't look like it. These people, Gaza is about at most 2 miles wide. They could have walked out of Gaza into areas that have camps for food, and their children wouldn't be starving. Yet they're still staying in there next to Hamas and starving. I wonder why. Well, I wonder what causes people to think along those lines. Why is that acceptable to them? It's because culturally, that's who they are. And they have yet to accept the fact that they and their culture has to change in order to live, all right, peaceably in a modern society. And they're willing to allow their children to starve to death to maintain that 12th century mentality. People better wake up. They better wake up about who they're actually dealing with, what the mentality of the people that are there, what it actually is like. Because it's not going to get better, folks. It's not. Migrant protests descend into anarchy as rival groups clash on a weekend of fury across Britain over asylum seekers' hotels. Migrant protests have descended into anarchy as a wave of demonstrations took place around the UK during a weekend of fury over asylum seeker hotels. More than 30 protests were held in the towns including Bristol, Exeter, Tamworth, Cannock, Newton, Liverpool, Wakefield, Newcastle, Horley, Canary Wharf, Aberdeen, and Perth in Scotland, and Mold in Wales. Counter protests, many set up by the anti-fascist group Stand Up to Racism. All right, first of all, Elizabeth Haig, all right, and Olivia Al Hussein, all right, who were the reporters for this. Why do you say that they're anti-fascist? That this is an anti-fascist group? What evidence do you have that they're truly anti-fascist? Why would you even add that statement in there? Because you're trying to color it, the people who are protesting them, as fascists. So you mislabel a group of quote-unquote anti-fascists as an effort to say that the people doing the protesting are fascists. Okay? This is getting worse and worse. There is a huge groundswell of rioting that's starting to unfold. Several demonstrators have been seen scuffling with police and shouting at opposing sides as the chaos unfolds across the country. There are fears that some of the locations could see an outbreak of disorder similar to last summer after the Southport attack, which triggered riots across the country in response to fake information being published online that the attacker was a migrant. Many are hoping protests will ultimately result in a ruling for the Bell Hotel in Epping, Essex, which must close to asylum seekers in weeks unless an appeal is granted. Okay, the reality is Britain, it's lost. You're going to have to figure out a way of getting rid of these things. They are holding Welsh, and this is the Welsh flag, and that's what it looks like. It could be Scotland, depends on the thing. I can't really tell for sure. This looks like a dragon of some sort. Perhaps I'm wrong. I'm not a flag expert, but they're carrying British flags. All right, the Union Jack and so forth. Well, not really the Union Jack, but you understand what I mean. And this is the problem. Okay. Meanwhile, the LGBTQ groups, notice them flying every flag but British flags. Okay? This is the thing. This is how the things have been divided. Look at this. You take a panoramic view. Where are the British flags here? And yet, now they're just communists. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. It's sad. So it's it is what it is. It is sad. What are we gonna do, folks? What are you gonna do with these people? Meanwhile, Merz in Germany is whining and crying about how tough it is going to be to turn around their economic woes. And this was a Bloomberg report. Merz's problem with his economic woes are going to be the same problem of the British woes. It's going to be the same problem as the French woes and the rest of the European Union as a whole. Their woes, including one of our biggest backstabbing little weasels in NATO called Spain. It's the same problem of like Canada giving in on their tariffs now and ending their tariffs against America because they know they can't continue them. I have said this to many people. I'm going to say it again. The United States does not need anything from the rest of the world. The fact that we import a lot of stuff has nothing to do with having to do it. Oh, it's cheaper. It's cheaper. It's only cheaper because of the stupidity of our own politicians. When you remove a lot of those problems, which Trump has been doing, especially through getting rid of people within the bureaucracy that are causing the problems, all of a sudden the U.S. can produce shit completely on its own. It doesn't need all the production of these other countries. And they're finding that out. So Mertz is busy crying about, oh, what are we going to do? Where are you going to sell your shit? Well, we're going to try and sell it to China. China isn't going to do it because they have so much of their own crap to try and sell to their own citizens. Their own citizens can't even afford their own crap. And it isn't necessarily cheaper to produce things in China, even with slave labor. Because the U.S. can outproduce it and actually make things a lot cheaper than we have. The problem has been all this NIMBY shit and all this freaking leftist socialist crap that's been going on in this country. It isn't cheaper to sit up there and do a lot of this stuff. If it was always cheaper to use manual labor, you'd still see people out there in the wheat fields, right, with hand size cutting down wheat, which is what you see in China. But you don't see that in the United States anywhere. Why? Because it's all mechanized. And there's nothing you can't mechanize when it comes to agricultural production, especially nowadays. Is there a perfect solution? No. But when you talk about mechanization, you're talking about being able to do things, all right, on a larger scale, which increases productivity. The problem with the United States is leftists in this country constantly prevent us from feeding the even agriculturally, boosting up the amount of agricultural products that we have. Japan city drafts ordinance to cap smartphone use at 2 hours per day. Hey, you know what? I actually like this. Central Japan City said Thursday in Nagoya it will seek to pass an ordinance recommending all residents limit smartphone use to 2 hours a day outside of work and school amid concerns of the over the impact of excessive technology exposure, though there are no penalties proposed yet. The Toyoaki in the Aichi province prefectures is likely to be the first such municipal regulations in Japan that targets a limit on the use of smartphones and other electronic devices, according to the city. If passed by the local assembly, the ordinance will come into effect on October 1st. As long as the mechanization isn't done by Microsoft, it'll probably be okay. So we're ending smartphone. The people just living on the smartphones. Hey, you know what? That's a good thing. Okay. The smartphones are a massive inhibitor to actual productivity, in my opinion. An ordinance for a suggestion. It's a move forward, Oz. It's a move forward. Meanwhile, down south, drug mule dubbed Blondie Devil executed in cold blood after switching gangs. A notorious drug trafficker known as the Blonde Devil was brutally executed after allegedly changing allegiances between gangs. Eloin Pasos Rodriguez, 28, was shot dead on Thursday, August 14th, and her body discarded in the street, wrapped in a sheet and missing part of her head following reports of intense gunfire in the area. She was swiftly identified by a large back tattoo filled with gang symbols. Her suspected defection made her a target of the Comando Vermelho, I'm trying to butcher his name, I can't do it, which had previously killed 3 members of the Teresa Commando Puro, 2 months prior, and warned her that she would be next. And you can see her with, obviously she's got lots of tattoos. Irwin eerily posted on social media, "I don't surrender alive. I only leave in a coffin." She was wanted on 3 outstanding arrest warrants for drug trafficking and organized crime, and had already been sentenced to 5 years and 10 months in prison, but was evading capture. And yet she was posting on social media. So she's on her way to church. just just pointing these things out. Headmistress jailed for raping students commits vile act on younger inmate. Malka Leifer, 58, has been moved to solitary confinement after abusing a woman in her 20s in full view of the CCTV cameras as she served 15 years in jail for raping 2 of her students. A former headmistress jailed for raping 2 of her students at a Jewish school has been caught on CCTV sexually assaulting a younger inmate at a maximum security women's prison. Warped Malika Leffer, 58, has been moved to solitary confinement after abusing a woman in her 20s in full view of the CCTV cameras, according to reports in Australia. The assault, which allegedly occurred in late July, was against a young Aboriginal woman who had been transferred to the Murray unit, which is where inmates are segregated for their own protection. Leifer, who ran an ultra-Orthodox Adis Israel school in Melbourne, is serving 15 years for repeated sexual abuse against students in her care at a maximum security facility, Dame Phyllis Frost Center in the city. The mum of 8 fled to Israel, where she holds dual citizenship and was jailed in 2023 after a lengthy process to extradite her to Australia. Okay, I know that people aren't going to like this, but is this woman a massive and constant and irredeemable threat to society? I would have to say yes. This is a woman who's an example of why the death penalty should be more the should be included for more than just murder. Okay. Meanwhile, in Russia, Judge Vasily Vetigun, 40, was gunned down and stabbed multiple times in Kayashim, Volgograd, all right, by an alleged Russian soldier who suspected his wife of having an affair. Now, this is more of a reason why Vlad may start thinking about maybe maybe we need to end the war, because a Russian soldier is really not going to give much of a screw about anybody else. A Russian judge was shot dead, stabbed multiple times, and had his severed genitals stuffed in his mouth after being accused of having an affair. Judge Valecy Vetigun, 40, had only just walked out of a courthouse in the Kashim, Volgograd region, all right, when he was gunned down and had a knife plunged into his eye. The judge was allegedly attacked by his secretary's husband, who suspected an affair, according to police sources. Sergei Kibulanov, 47, a transport business owner, was detained at the scene of the killing and is being questioned by Russian police. He is under investigation for murder with particular cruelty, documents show. Police are investigating whether the gruesome murder was motivated by jealousy. Yelena Kibanova, 40, had been working as the judge's secretary, and sources allege that Kibanova, I'm not going to try to do it, suspected the pair of having an affair. According to witnesses, the judge was shot with a semi-automatic hunting rifle. The eyewitnesses said the judge came out of the courthouse and got into his car, started to drive off. A man blocked his way and began shooting at the car. The judge ran out and headed toward the lawyer's office, right? But the man gunned him down, cut off his penis, shoved it into his mouth, and stabbed him repeatedly, finally sticking a knife into his eye. I, you know, now in this case, would you give the soldier the death penalty? I mean, is he a threat to anybody else? Sounds like he's just a threat to that guy. Just putting it out there. Woman dressed in a hot dog costume busted for toilet paper caper. Drunk and angry that a neighbor parked near her yard, Marcia Morgan, 48, covered the offending vehicle with toilet paper. Oh, did we mention that Morgan was dressed in a hot dog costume at the time of the 4 p.m. incident? The Florida woman, just put it out there, was busted Monday afternoon and charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Cops noted that Morgan, seen at the right, was intoxicated and refused to cooperate. On Tuesday, Morgan pleaded no contest to misdemeanor counts and was adjudged guilty of the charges. She was fined $550, which she can work off via community service at $13 per hour. Right? Sadly, police and court records offer no explanation for why Morgan was dressed in a hot dog as a hot dog during the toilet paper caper, which took place outside of her rented St. Petersburg home. It's not just there's something in the water down there, okay? There's something in the water around the Tampa, St. Petersburg area. All right, I'm just pointing this out because there are too many stories that come from that group there. But we're not finished. Woman performs sex act in front of horrified kids on a school run. Sarah Crawford, 40, who escaped jail at Newcastle Magistrate Court on Friday, had previously been in trouble with cops after defecating in her cell following an earlier arrest. A woman was caught performing a sex act with another woman in a shop doorway in front of horrified children has dodged jail. Sarah Crawford engaged in a sex act with Rosalinda Fitzgerald while heavily intoxicated near a store on York Road in Bertley. All right, she had been at an all-night party in hours leading up to the offense. Reports said. Court heard how children and other members of the public were in the area when the pair took part in the act at 8:45 a.m. All right. Crawford was again in trouble with the police in June following an outburst in Durham City Center, according to the Chronicle Live. The 40-year-old assaulted a police officer after throwing items of shop stock in the street. When she was taken to a police cell, she defecated inside of it, causing damage. I'm just amazed. I really am. 6 severed heads found on a busy street alongside an ominous message. The severed heads, along with an ominous message, were recently found on a road linking two generally peaceful states in central Mexico. Generally peaceful. I don't think that word means what you think it means. 6 severed heads have been found on a road in central Mexico, sparking a major investigation. Drug cartels? Just put it. The discovery was made by local authorities early on Tuesday morning in an area that is usually peaceful and not associated with cartel violence. Really? Their heads just flew off there by themselves. The route where severed heads were found links the central states of Puebla, I'm not trying to butcher it, and Tlaxcala. All right. Police have not yet provided a motive behind the killings. All right. Nor have they revealed any information regarding the criminal groups operating in Mexico that have been behind the horrific act. A blanket was reportedly left at the gruesome scene with a message that issued a warning to rival gangs. We're not sure what happened. Gee, I wonder what this was. It was allegedly signed by a group called La Beradora, which translates to the sweeper. La Beradora happens to be the name of a little-known criminal gang that operates in the western state of Guerrero. However, there is no clarity on whether the cartel was behind the attack or their motive. The Tuxedowa prosecutor's office has already launched an investigation into the shocking killings. Said the heads found in Tuxedowa were those of men. They took to federal authorities are yet to issue an official statement on the killings because they're too busy bitching about Trump may go across the border and start killing cartel members. Oh my goodness. Let's talk about Trump for a while. Trump was once a Republican Party outsider. He was once a registered Democrat. Now it's his GOP, and the MAGA faithful are in the lead. No. Okay. Amy Kremer was an early Tea Party leader who supported Donald Trump for president in 2016. She ran for Congress in Georgia in 2017, got less than 1% of the Republican primary vote. In 2021, she organized the rally near the White House and took place hours before hundreds of Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol to protest his loss to Democrat Joe Biden. That's not what they were protesting. They're protesting the lack of action by people to investigate things that they found suspicious. Two different things entirely. As voters returned Trump to power in 2024, Kimmer unseated a conservative stalwart to become the Republican National Committee member. This week in Atlanta, she used that post to help elect a new party chairman, Joe Gerters of Florida. He's another original Trump backer who has been described by the president as a MAGA warrior, a reference to the Make America Great Again movement. Okay, understand this. This is a conservative sweeping away of the rhinos out of the Republican Party. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing true conservatives come to ascendance. It's not, and what's more, that's not who Trump is. Trump is not an ideological conservative. I want people to understand this. Trump is not someone you can count on to shrink the size of the federal government. That is not his goal. Wish it was. But that's never been his goal. People don't understand what the fight is going on within the Republican Party any more than why people support Trump. And the guy who wrote this story, Bill Barr, he doesn't understand it either. He thinks it's all a Trump thing, that Trump is this demagogue. Trump is not the leader of the GOP. He is being led by conservatives in the GOP. He is using the movement, yes, to his own ends. Yes, he's a narcissist. But as long as he's doing things that conservatives want done, nobody cares. The GOP are supporting it. And when he does things that they don't like, they let him know it, which is why this whole Ghislaine Maxwell thing is an issue right now. Trump isn't sitting there waving his Svengali wand against people who don't disagree with him, right? But people on the left, like the Britisher, will never be able to figure that out. They'll never figure it out. Trump follows the MAGA movement far more than he leads it. He's the spokesman, he's the face of it because the media made him so. But people like Bill here, Bill Barr, he doesn't get it. Meanwhile, the Justice Department is investigating the DC police over alleged fake crime data. What a surprise! The Justice Department is investigating whether Washington, D.C. police manipulated data to make crime rates appear lower, escalating tensions between the Trump administration and local officials who have repeatedly cited drops in violent crime to protest the need for a federal takeover of law enforcement. The criminal probe being run out of D.C., all right, federal prosecutor's office, led by the Attorney General Jeanine Pirro, right, is expected to examine the actions of multiple police officials, according to three people familiar with the investigation who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private deliberations. DC gave fake numbers in order to create the false illusion of safety, President Donald Trump wrote on social media Monday night, confirming the existence of the probe. This is a very bad and dangerous thing to do. We are under serious investigation for so doing, or they are under serious investigation for so doing. This doesn't surprise anybody because these leftists don't give a squat about any of this. Okay? They don't care what crimes they commit. They truly don't. They're not natively honest. You cannot be a leftist and be natively honest. You can't be. You can't be an honest person and say I'm on the left. And I say that because it's easy to prove. It's easy to prove. Just in a discussion with them, you can throw it right in their face because they can't even. They're so dishonest. They can't even be honest with themselves. And the main reason is because they don't understand that all they are going by is emotion. So they're easily swayed one way or another on, on any issue. All right, as long as somebody can come up with an emotional component with which to sway them, because they have no principles, not even the principle of being honest. The vast majority of them are just self-deluded degenerates. And I mean that in every sense of the word. IHOP waitress charged with customer grope. An IHOP waitress sexually harassed a female customer and rubbed a 51-year-old woman's breast, back, and arm after sitting next to her in a restaurant booth, according to police who arrested the worker for battery. Investigators allege that Allie Mae Wright, a 26-year-old server at a Florida IHOP, was waiting on a patron when she began to call the victim a sexy cunt and gave her a milkshake that was not ordered. Wright, cops charge, would return to the table and continue to call her a sexy cunt. Wright then sat next to the victim and began to rub the victim on the back, arm, and on the outside of her right breast, and was seen resting her head on the victim's shoulder. Oh my god. I just I just don't understand. Obviously, and this is in the St. Pete Beach Pancake Purveyor. I don't know where St. Pete Beach is. Sounds suspiciously close to Tampa. All right. Okay. The judge has ordered that the St. Petersburg residents have no contact with them. And just pointed it out. In a move I highly, highly agree with. The Trump administration is reviewing all 55 million foreigners with U.S. visas for any violations. 55 million visas in this country. Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. I don't know if she's from Australia. The Trump administration said Thursday it is reviewing more than 55 million people who have valid U.S. visas for any violations that could lead to deportation, part of a growing crackdown on foreigners who are permitted to be in the United States. In a written answer to a question from the Associated Press, the State Department said all U.S. visa holders, which can include tourists from many countries, are subject to continuous vetting with an eye toward any indication they could be ineligible for permission to enter or stay in the United States. Such information, should such information be found, the visa will be revoked, and if the visa holder is in the United States, he or she is subject to deportation. Since President Donald Trump took office, his administration has focused on deporting migrants illegally in the United States, as well as holders of student and visitor exchange visas. The State Department's new language suggests that the continual vetting process, which officials acknowledge is time consuming, is far more widespread and could mean even more of those approved to those to be in the United States could abruptly see those permissions revoked. And all I can say is, good! There are 12.8 million green card holders and 3.6 million people in the U.S. on temporary visas last year. I would start with those, and I would get rid of every single one. If they've been to a protest, if they go out to a protest on a college campus somewhere, then they can go home and they can protest there. I think that I think Vice City is supposed to be in Florida. They keep talking about how it's GTA. It's all actually San Diego kind of thing. But I agree with you. It should be in Florida. Trump says U.S. will take nearly 10% equity stake in Intel. President Trump said the government is taking a nearly 10% stake in Intel, capping a 2-week frenzy in Washington over the future of the company and fueling speculation about what else might be done to help the troubled chipmaker. Trump said in the Oval Office Friday that the company has agreed to give the government the stake as part of discussions about the company's future and billions of dollars in grants it has received from the 2022 CHIPS Act. I said, I think you should pay us about 10% of the company, and they said yes. The agreement came out of a meeting last week between Trump and Intel chief executive Lip Bu Tan, which made which came days after the president called for Tan to resign over his ties to China. Okay, first of all, I don't like the fact that the United States is getting in bed with any private company, all right, or owning any private company whatsoever. All right, I do understand the security need and the national security elements in this specific incident. But before people get all on their high horses about this is where we warned you about Trump was doing this kind of stuff and he's a socialist and he's all this, which it is a socialist type of tactic to a degree. Okay, I would remind those people that this is hardly the first time the U.S. government has done this kind of stupid shit. Does anybody remember Dodge and Lee Iacocca and Chrysler when we bought stakes in that? Does anybody remember when I think it was the Obama administration purchased part of GM as well? This is what people do, man. This is what the company goes. Now, as far as Intel goes, yes, Intel needs to realign its assets back into the United States. And if that's what he's going with and he's moving forward with that, I don't have a problem with what Trump's doing there. All right, per se. I think it needs to be looked at. I think it needs to be watched. All right. And I don't like the fact that we're trying to quote unquote, dig another freaking protect another company from going under. Because, to be honest, there's a lot of companies like that. I never even considered an Intel CPU. The FDA is investigating possible radioactive shrimp sold at Walmart. The FDA is warning the public about possibly radioactive shrimp that may have been sold at Walmart in 13 states. The warning is for some great value raw frozen shrimp because it may be contaminated with cesium 137, a radioactive isotope the FDA announced on Tuesday. The brands include Great Value brand frozen raw, easy peel tail, on farm raised white Bethnelli shrimp. All right. Great Value brand frozen raw, easy peel tail on farm raised shrimp bag, a 2 pound bag on the lots. All right. It's just given the same thing. All right, Walmart says that the products were sold at stores in Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Missouri, Mississippi, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Texas, and West Virginia. Customs and Border Protection alerted the FDA about possible cesium 137 contamination detected in shipping containers at 4 U.S. ports. The FDA then tested samples of the shrimp initially processed by BMS Foods of Indonesia and found the radioactive materials. Officials said at the time that no product that has tested positive or alerted for cesium 137 has entered the U.S. commerce. Still, they are advising that if you recently purchased one of the impacted lots of great value raw shrimp from Walmart, throw it away. Do not eat or serve this product. Distributors and retailers are being told to dispose of the product. The FDA is working with distributors and retailers that receive the product from PT Bahari Makur Sejati after the date of first detection of cesium 137 to recommended firms to conduct a recall. Okay. Here's the question. Okay. How did they get a hold of the contaminated shrimp? How did the shrimp get contaminated in the first place? These are supposed to be farm shrimp. So the question becomes, how are these things getting elevated levels of cesium? Now, I will say this. Since it's Indonesia, okay, the fear obviously is this is a byproduct of the disaster at Fukushima. That's what this looks like to me. Okay, the FDA is investigating. It's a possibility, and the reason that okay, like a lot of different things, cesium 137 is something that replaces other elements within the body. Okay, for shrimp, it'll become concentrated. All right, in elements, it will cesium also is tends to be concentrated in coconuts. Believe it or not, areas of this is why some of the areas in the Bikini Atoll are considered off. You know, they've listed the areas as even the natives aren't allowed to go on them because the coconuts have a high concentration of cesium 137 because that's where it gets stored from the plants. Even though the surrounding area has almost nothing, it's not even detectable because the element is used by the plant life itself. That area of the plant life becomes more radioactive. Is this truly a danger? If you ate one of these contaminated shrimp, is it likely that anything was going to happen to you? Absolutely not. Okay. So that's not saying that you need to eat a lot of the shrimp. If you eat a lot of the shrimp, could there be an effect? Yeah. But the likelihood of anybody actually being harmed by any of this is just a bit of. I'm not going to say it's an overreaction because it needs to be investigated, but at the same time, the way they're using it and scaring people is just hilarious. This next story is a problem. Okay. Could it be the effect of superpowers? Soon the Grand Shrimp is going to attack Tokyo. But this is a problem, folks. A bullet was fired into Chiefs coach Andy Reid's office last spring while he was there, says the Kansas City Star. A bullet was fired into Kansas City Chiefs coach Andy Reid's office at a team practice facility last spring while he was inside, the Kansas City Star reported. The Star, citing multiple sources, reported Reid was working alone in his office in early May of 2024 when a bullet fired from the outside of the building broke through the glass and left a hole through the window and the blinds. It lodged in a wall between his bathroom and the entry door to his office. The team installed bulletproof glass soon afterwards. The Star reported 2 more bullets hit the facility, one striking the 3rd floor and another an outdoor air conditioning unit. Few people in the organization knew about the incident. That's a problem. They didn't report this. People need to know about stories like this, not because this, whether you like him or not, Andy Reid is a celebrity within the United States. This is a well-known figure who appears that he was targeted by some loon. And if they had released this information, maybe they could have tracked down who did this instead of hiding the fact that it had happened. People need to wake up, and the press needs to be held accountable for things like this, because this is a major failure by the press. That's a that's a reality. Top Air Force general to exit in latest shakeup at the Pentagon. Good. Chief of Staff of the Air Force, David Alvin, will retire 2 years into his 4-year term, officials said Monday, making the latest early ouster of a senior military officer under President Donald Trump. The Air Force disclosed the move in a statement saying that Alvin had announced his plans to retire early in November. No successor was announced. Alvin will continue to serve until one is confirmed by the Senate, the statement said. Alvin was informed last week that he would be asked to retire and that the Pentagon, under Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, wanted to go in another direction, said a person familiar with the matter who, like some others, spoke on the condition of anonymity. As a trade-off, the Pentagon will allow Alvin to announce the decision, this person said, adding, it was certainly not his choice. Why? Because these people think that they themselves run things. These people, there's a lot of them in the Pentagon who think that they are the commander-in-chief, not the commander-in-chief, and they decide what's best for America and best for the America's military. Specifically, the kind of stupidity that these kind of idiots pushed. Like, let's have trainees run around in the country, in the military. Let's promote trans activism on the Air Force base. These are not people, these are people with an agenda, and they need to be gotten rid of. There's too many of them. And it isn't just him. It's all the civilians he's hired with him that need to go as well. Now, he personally may be a very brave person, all right, as far as physically. But I can tell you right now, emotionally, I think he's terrible and he needs to go. I have said this for a long time. Where do you find most of these loons? In the Air Force and the Navy. Why? Why is it that they're there? Is it something in the water? They sent them down to St. Petersburg for a bit? Who knows? They gotta start cleaning house. And there's a lot of cleaning that has to be done. U.S. seeks to deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia to Uganda after he refused a plea deal in a smuggling case. Immigration officials said they intend to deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia to Uganda after he declined an offer to be deported to Costa Rica in exchange for remaining in jail and pleading guilty to human smuggling charges. According to a Saturday court filing, the Costa Rican offer came late Thursday after it was clear that the Salvadoran national would likely be released from a Tennessee jail the following day. Abrego Garcia declined to his extended stay in jail and was released on Friday to await trial in Maryland with his family. Later that day, the DHS notified his attorneys that he would be deported to Uganda and should report to the immigration authorities on Monday. Bye, boy. Ow, ow! Did you see the judge? See, this is really sticking it to Trump. He can't be doing it. Bye. The Rainbow Crosswalk outside the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, painted over by the state mayor, says a cruel political act. A rainbow crosswalk outside the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, which commemorated the 49 victims killed at the LGBTQ friendly nightclub in 2016, was painted over by the state. All right, Mayor Buddy Dreyer and others revealed Thursday. We are devastated to learn that overnight the state painted over the Post Memorial crosswalk on Orange Avenue, but we know that this crosswalk has been removed. All right, but we know that while this crosswalk has been removed, Orlando's commitment to honoring the 49 can never be realized. All right, you're acting as if you're honoring LGBTQ rather than prosecuting the Muslim loon, all right, who committed the crime. Okay, just pointing this out to you. Now, a lot of people have gone in there and tried to color back over with chalk, right? To paint over the whole thing with chalk and try and color it back in. At which point, okay, you can say that, but when people sit up there and come in with black paint and paint over the top of it again, nothing's going to happen to them. Just pointing out. Be glad he's going to Uganda. They could have deported him off the planet. All right. Now, what happened at the Pulse nightclub? Oh, it was horrible. Okay. But why haven't they gone in there and gone into the community of peace that caused it? Oh, we must support the LGBTQ. No, I'm not going to protect you. The best way that you get protected is if we get rid of these people. Takeaways from the Justice Department interviews with Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. Hundreds of pages of transcripts from the Justice Department's interview of Ghislaine Maxwell, the former girlfriend of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, spoke glowingly of President Donald Trump, called him a gentleman in all respects, and describing him as friendly with Epstein. Both Trump supporters and his Democratic opponents have clamored for the documents about the case to be made public. The transcripts released Friday. Maxwell also details what she knew about Epstein's interaction with other high-profile men, including former President Bill Clinton, current Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Britain's Prince Andrew, saying she never observed untold behavior from any of them. Here are the key takeaways. The transcripts are from interviews by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche conducted with Maxwell last month, and the sit-down came as the Trump administration scrambled to present itself as transparent amid backlash among even some of Trump's most loyal supporters over perceived broken promise to release more information on the case. Trump has faced questions about a long-term friendship with Epstein, and his administration has endured continued scrutiny over its handling of evidence in the sex trafficking case. The ire peaked when Attorney General Pam Bondi last month said that Epstein did not leave behind a client list. That is not what she said. She said there was no list. Okay? And that's different from saying that Epstein didn't do a list. Okay? Now, Ghislaine in this transcript said the same thing, that they never created a list. But that's not the problem. The problem isn't whether Maxwell had a list or Epstein had a list. The problem is a list had to have been compiled by someone within the government. If for no other reason, that list had to include everybody that it was on it so that they could do the investigation. And to say that there's no list is absolutely ridiculous. And once again, Ghislaine isn't going to show up with anything. She was only a cutout. I'm telling you now that the people that they have to get involved with is going to sit up there and find out who in the federal government was involved in putting this operation together. And it goes to the CIA. That's what I believe. And the reason I believe it, it's the only thing that makes sense. To say that there's no list belies the fact that there was an investigation. There had to have been a list created, if for no other reason, to go in there and ask people about it. And exactly, they didn't investigate anything. Why? Because the CIA was working with the FBI and told the FBI these are assets. That's the only way that this happens this way. It's the only way that this happens this way. Eventually, they're going to have to find the people within the CIA that were involved in this and out them. That's the only solution. Unheard, the illusion of safe marijuana. Rescheduling it only helps big weed. From Kevin Sabat. Oh my God. In 2018, 27-year-old Brian Spickler, an inexperienced marijuana smoker in California, killed her boyfriend Chad Maleo by stabbing him 108 times, a crime the local district attorney described as horrific and one of the worst our medical examiner has ever seen. A jury found Spickler guilty of involuntary manslaughter, but she's received only probation at the sentencing. She stabbed somebody 108 times and got probation in California. I only like little weed. Because of compelling presentation by her defense of cannabis-induced psychosis. Prior to the violent incident, Spickler had taken 2 hits of legal marijuana from a bong and claimed that she began seeing things that weren't there. Now, oh my God, we're gonna sit there and reschedule marijuana, which makes all the freaking idiots in the libertarians. Oh, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. Oh, no, it's another acceptance of a type of degeneracy, folks. It's the slide. It's the slope. We keep going down further and further down that slope. So when it all comes back and the reaction happens and everything gets banned, it's going to be horrible. Sounds like schizophrenia or something lightweight. Well, okay. I don't know anything about marijuana per se, as far as what it does to you when you have it, because I've never tried it. But the attitude of many people that marijuana was harmless is a mistake. Marijuana is not harmless. Now, most people don't have psychoses like the girl has, all right? But marijuana has never been as harmless as people have claimed it was. Especially the ones that say it's safer for you than a regular tobacco cigarette. No, it's not. Paramount eyes epic bloodbath of job cuts in early November after Skydance merger. It will be a turkey of a Thanksgiving for thousands of Paramount employees. The media giant is targeting early November for what one insider called an epic bloodbath, a massive round of layoffs following its merger with Hollywood studio maker Sundance Media, the Post has learned. Jeff Shell, a former NBCU Universal boss, tapped by Sundance as Paramount's new president, has told managers at the home to Paramount Pictures, CBS, MTV, and Showtime to start compiling kill lists. A source with knowledge said those lists of employees that will be fired will be submitted to the company overlords in October, and layoffs, which will save the media giant over $2 billion, will roll out early November, according to sources. It's sad, all right, but this is what's happened. Okay. The problem with these kill lists are they try to do just an average cutting rather than say, okay, what direction are we actually going to go? So we're going to try and get rid of this group versus that group. All right. And it's a twofold process. Some of the people you get rid of in one group, you probably would be better off hiring them in another group that is saved by getting rid of certain individuals lacking in the other group. That's what's going to end up happening. Needs to happen. Needs to happen. When you tell me that what's his name, Colbert, all right, that the Colbert Show is losing money, considering the ad revenue and other things that are involved in it. That to me tells me that there's too many people, there's too much bloat. You've got to get rid of people, including what people you consider talented. Because quite frankly, I've never found Colbert is all that talented. Right? So, yeah, Colbert ending the Colbert Show is just the start of it. I'm paying it. A Palmero contractor pays $20,000 fine in loose change. Palmero, Maine. A Palmero man faced with a hefty fine from the town has upset local officials with how he decided to pay it. In April 2024, contractor Kirk Sherman purchased a waterfront property alongside Lake Sheepscot in Palmero. In December, he, along with a building partner, Dusky Haskell, was faced with a $20,000 fine due to violating the town's lakeshore ordinance. We actually approached the town before we bought the property about what could be done on it, Sherman explains. All right, and stated that we could do a 6-foot meandering path for about 100 feet. Then next into the next 200 feet, we could fill in with a tenth of an acre. The Palmero selectman, Bob Kurek, confirms those parameters, but said Sherman took the construction too close to the lake. What we got was a 20 to 12-foot road built with a bulldozer, basically. The area, the 200 feet, is also an area that cleans the water that different wildlife use and things like that, and you start to compact the soil, you can affect the health of the lake. The statement from the Maine Department of Environmental Protection, which also had a hand in this case, confirmed that Sherman did disrupt wetlands with construction. Of course, because that's all they ever do. And if you breathe next to it, you're disrupting the wetlands. But if quickly rectified, the pair would not face any penalty from the department. Per Sherman, that's exactly what they did. Within a day of the notification, we hired people that we had that were supposed to. All right, we contracted the DEP. We've done everything the DEP asked us to do, and the DEP was fine with it. All right, fine with it without they didn't write a violation or even give them fine. However, the DEP also confirmed that it was up to the municipality if he would like to pursue further disciplinary action. The select board unanimously decided to pursue the violation to ensure the property owners of the lake know that they must follow codes and ordinance, even if they remediate the damage once a violation has been issued. We can't fine people for shoreland zone violations, but we can enter into an agreement if they agree to pay the fine. Right? Feeling targeted with no desire to pursue the issue in court, the pair decided to agree to Pomeroy's ask, but not without payback of its own. Last Thursday, Sherman dropped off $20,000 payment entirely in loose change, weighed over 12,000 pounds to the town office. When you're trying to work with these asshole bureaucracies and they decide to be assholes, now they're thinking, well, we're going to fine him for the extra work that he caused by making us go through all this stuff. Personally, I would pay him whatever fine they try and find him again. He's going to get it again. All right. Final four stories here, folks. A Pennsylvania fire department is asking for a return of the large wooden Smokey the Bear sign taken from outside the station while firefighters were out on a call. Bear Creek Township Volunteer Fire Rescue said on social media that the wooden sign vanished from in front of the station along with the Bear Creek Boulevard in Luzerne County. The sign featuring the image of Smokey the Bear pointing to the words, "Remember, only you can prevent forest fires." Only you can prevent forest fires. All right, the sign features the image of Smokey the Bear pointing to the words. All right, firefighters returned to their station after the Monday night call to find the sign had apparently been removed from its base using a saw. The department is asking anyone with information on the sign's whereabouts to contact the Department of Pennsylvania State Police. 12-foot python captured after weeks on the loose in South Carolina. A family of animal lovers teamed up with another local resident in South Carolina to wrangle a 12-foot yellow python that had been on the loose in the area for weeks. Prosperity resident Warren Gallen ventured out with his son Jordan and nephew Jaden Atkinson when a local family reported the sighting of the albino reticulated python, which had been on the loose in Newberry County for several weeks. The trio visited the scene of the sighting about 2 miles from Gallen's home and searched the area with Evan Turner, another nearby resident. They spotted the 12-foot snake after a 15-minute search. Amazing how they can do this, but the county officials couldn't. All right. And Gallen was able to grab the reptile's head, and amateur reptile wranglers were able to safely capture the snake, with Gallen suffering a few scrapes from being pulled into the bushes by the python. Local authorities said the snake's origins remain a mystery. That's an awfully big snake to just appear somewhere. Okay? It's believed to be. It's believed this was someone's pet that was released because this type of snake is not native here. Duh. All right. Wow, what an assessment. Lots of people buy these snakes when they are 2 or 3 foot long, and you've got a cage that's 4 foot long, and it's fine for a couple of years, but eventually the snake's going to get 15 plus feet long, and you need to make sure you can accommodate what the snake needs for its entire life. That's a difficult situation. Now, I will tend to agree that people buy these snakes, and they think it's just like these idiots that buy crocodiles and alligators when they're small. Sooner or later, they're going to get big. They're reptiles. That's what they do. They grow. Okay. Not as bad as when Jake the snake had a cobra in another wrestler's house and it went into the wall. Yeah, well, cobras are an entire different matter, man. Those things are dangerous. Meanwhile, Sweet Tooth Bear breaks into a California ice cream shop. This is not a surprise. A California sheriff's office shared photos of a bear that broke into an ice cream parlor and helped itself to some strawberry ice cream behind the counter. The El Dorado County Sheriff's Office said on social media that the deputies were summoned early Sunday morning to the ice cream shop on Camp Richardson in South Lake Tahoe. Deputies could barely believe their eyes when they saw a large bear behind the countertop. What do you mean you can barely believe it? I fully believe it. It's Tahoe. There's bears everywhere. Right? The sheriff's office said the bear, which only showed interest in the strawberry ice cream, left the shop with some encouragement from deputies. Thankfully, Fuzzy the bear caused barely any property damage, and there was barely any cleanup. Yeah, I kind of doubt that. Let me go X for doubt for that. For one thing, you're going to have to re-clean everything, all right, including any of the containers that were near. Even if the bear didn't break into those containers, if the bear was there, I'd be throwing those containers out. So to say that there was hardly any damage, but what do you expect? Now, why did the bear attack the strawberry ice cream? Probably because of the smell. It smelled into something unlike. So, right. All right, final story of the day, folks. From NPR News. Texas big game hunter killed while stalking African Cape buffalo. If you're a trophy hunter and you get trophied by the animal, you're not going to get a whole lot of sympathy from me. I feel sorry for any family that he has, but at the same time, you're a trophy hunter. I don't believe in trophy hunting. I believe in hunting if you're going to eat the animal, or if you're trying to exterminate vermin. I don't believe in trophy hunting for the sake of trophy hunting. A Texas real estate magnate and trophy hunter was killed by a Cape buffalo during a hunting expedition in South Africa, according to a safari company, which described the incident as sudden and unprovoked. It's a Cape buffalo. The damn things are dangerous. Asher Watkins had been tracking the bull for a kill when the large horned animal staged an attack first. Okay, Asher was fatally injured in a sudden and unprovoked. You're trying to stalk the animal and you're saying you're not provoking it? Why can you say that it was unprovoked? All right. He was suddenly, in a sudden and unprovoked attack by an unwounded buffalo, he was tracking together with one of our professional hunters and one of our trackers. The family and our team members who were present at the time are understandably shaken. Out of respect for the family's privacy as well as our staff members involved, we will not be sharing further details. He described Watkins and his family as long-standing friends and part of the CDS family, the Conrad Wehrmacht Safaris family. Cape buffaloes are considered one of the most wanted, dangerous game animals by trophy hunters across the globe, according to the Safari Company. No other animal has a more fearsome reputation than the Cape buffalo. They're responsible for as many deaths and many injuries, all right, each year. Gee, it was an unprovoked attack. How about leave it alone? You would have been fine. Okay? All right. Now, of course, PETA has to get involved. Asher Watkins went on a luxury hunting trip in South Africa when he stalked the Cape buffalo, the animal rights group PETA wrote on Instagram. The terrified buffalo was cornered and retaliated. No, it was a Cape buffalo. It may have just woken up on the wrong end of the thing. The damn things are mean. It wasn't terrified. If it was terrified, it would have run away. Okay? It decided that these things, Cape Buffalo, take on lions, for crying out loud. And sometimes win. Okay? I'm just pointing this out. When it comes to humans, Cape Buffalo have been known to notice a human tracking them, okay, double back on their trails and hide, waiting for the hunter to go by, trying to track it, and then exterminate it. These things are also exceptionally smart. They're not terrified, okay? Just pointing this out. Now, I have no problem with the fact that he got whacked. But Cape Buffalo, to use the term terrified, they're terrifying, folks. Let's be honest. All right, that's all I got for the day. I hope that everybody had a good time. Once again, next week we'll see what happens. Whether or not I'm on time, it will probably be. I will probably have to do this earlier, right? So you can look a little bit earlier in the day. But I hope you all have a good day, and I will talk at you all later. Bye bye, everybody.